Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Gringa and Local podcast. We are so excited to be starting this session with you here. It is going to be one that I hope is very insightful for you. But my name is Rachel Jensen. I am obviously the Gringa.
And my name is Joe Mendizabal, and I'm obviously the local.
And we're going to be covering life here in Belize, what it's like to live here, what it's like to move here. And Job and I have two very different perspectives of what it's like here because we both came in at pretty different situations into the country here into Belize. And so we're going to be uncovering life for you over the next episode. So we're looking forward to having you tune in. And with that, we're going to just get started. So, Job, how did you sleep last night?
Whew. I didn't.
Oh, crazy night?
Yeah. A lot of drinks? Not really. Well, we had a blackout last night. And it was an unplanned one. I was working in my office from like around 8 in the night, right?
About 8.
And there was a street festival right in front of Front Street. So I was working there. Light went off. And I'm like, you know what? It happens.
Right.
So I was waiting for like half an hour and didn't come back. I'm like, okay, let me go home. I was getting hungry. I got,
you didn't get anything at the street fair?
No. Well, it was dark and it was raining. So, but remember I got I also had the turkey dinner from La Mulata that I bought.
Right.
Which honestly, I regret giving, Yaka.
The other plate, being generous.
I really, because we went and we got stuffed at Playa de Sala for lunch.
Right.
I said, I'm not going to eat 2 plates of turkey dinner. I took one for my dad, took one for me. I had it. It was so good. Maybe it was because I've been craving turkey dinner for a while, and the lady told me, if you don't like it, I'll refund it. And I'm like, how is that going to work? Because I'm still eating.
I can't give it back.
I can't give it back. But it was so good that I regret giving Yaka one because I wanted it. But it was
hopefully
good.
Hopefully you enjoyed it, Yaka.
I did, hopefully. But yeah, I think I realized the light wasn't going to come back until 12. At like around 12, I said, no, this is not coming back right now. And it was horrible. Because you know where I live, like my dad's room has the breeze from the ocean.
Yes.
But my one is in the back and doesn't have any breeze. Yep. So without any fan or AC, it's hot in there.
And especially right now with this time of year, we're starting to go into rainy season. So it's more humid than normal. It's hotter than normal and more mosquito-y.
Buggy than
normal. So all of these don't really pair too well when it comes to a power outage.
Mm-hmm. And I was out till like 12 when I realized that it wasn't going to come back. But it's not like I could put out my blanket there because it's raining. So that was that. I came in, I had like 3 fish coils. You know what this fish?
Yep.
Right? We'll put a picture there so you know what's a fish coil. And then that was that. But I was tossing and turning. I couldn't sleep. It wasn't until 3 in the morning that my dad said, oh, the light had come back. And I'm like, oh, great. So we turned on the fans. Then we started having that freak storm, you remember? Mm-hmm. It was just like for a half an hour, just poured on. So that was nice. But at least here we are. We're doing our first episode for La Gringa and the Local. From my perspective, I've been wanting to do a podcast for a while now. But I've always, my biggest insecurity has been, especially when I started this YouTube, like people don't, in my mind, I was like, people don't want to hear what I have to say. That was my thing. And then I started, and now I get feedback from people who's like, man, we love what you have to say. We love the way you have to say. So that keeps me going. I was thinking of doing something like this on my own, but I'm like...
You're just talking with yourself for an hour?
Yeah, just like, that would have been boring. So I'm glad I reached out to you. And you said you had been thinking about it. And we've been friends for forever.
7 years, maybe?
I was before the podcast. I wanted to say I went out and I looked at the oldest picture that I have of where you are. And you remember that Christmas parade? Our first Love FM Christmas parade?
Yes, with Rotaract.
Yes, with Rotaract. Yep. Mm-hmm. It was December 2017.
Oh, wow.
And by then, we were already pretty good friends.
Right.
So I'm thinking like probably 2016. And then I saw another picture where we were from August 2017.
Uh-huh.
So I'm thinking like we probably started getting to know each other like from August 2016 or so.
Time has flown, and that was really how we got introduced to each other, was through Rotaract, and they were chartering a club here. And so one of our mutual friends put together a group of younger people in the community and said, here's the concept, go have at it and start a Rotaract club here. And you were president, right?
Yes.
You started off as the president with the Rotaract club?
Yes, it really helped a lot getting me out of, and I'm still very much an introvert.
I said the same, yeah.
I can't be out in crowds and think that I'm gonna be making friends.
Right.
Like I'll hide behind the screen or an email for you. Tough business to be in, and being an introvert. But that was how we got familiarized. And I remember you and I both hit it off pretty easily as friends. Then we... Could you scroll again?
But it was the Christmas parade. And for those of you who don't know what the Love FM Christmas parade is, every year, I guess, have they been doing it? Yeah, they did it last year. But every year it's a parade of golf carts, and it happens during Christmas time. And the golf carts are decorative, and there are different businesses and individuals who will decorate the golf cart. And then they'll, throw treats to the kids in the streets, or they'll have whatever it is that they're handing out. And so it's a very festive time here in San Pedro. It's a lot of fun. It happens obviously in December around the holidays. The weather is a little bit cooler. It's a really fun time. And so we spent that whole afternoon, remember, decorating the golf cart. Yes, decorating the golf cart, putting the wrapping paper on, making it look like a sleigh. You dressed up like Santa Claus. Was I dressed up like Mrs. Claus?
No,
I don't think so. I mean, it would have been perfect, but no. But I just remember we were handing out candy, and this is not so great to say, but we didn't know at that time that when we were doing an event with Rotaract that you're not supposed to be drinking on the job, right? Remember, we didn't know that. We just had no idea. Nobody really ever disclosed it to us. It's not like, well, there may have been a manual that we didn't read. I don't know. But we ended up getting a cooler. Remember this? And we filled it up with landsharks and ice. And landsharks is a light beer. And then we were driving down the road and throwing out candies to kids and having a wonderful time. We had a really, really good time. And then, was it the next meeting when we got summoned?
We got summoned for drinking.
Oh, you're not supposed to be drinking when you're doing Rotaract events. So lesson learned. I think we've grown up since then.
Yeah, and I remember I was giving out candy to the kids. And I remember one mother coming up and saying, and this is in Spanish, she said, ese Santa está bien borracho. Which says, that Santa Claus is so drunk. And I remember looking at her, I'm like, well, no sweet for you. So that has a lot to do with how what we have. So just to give the audience an idea of what we'll be talking about is we'll be talking about in our first episode, friends, love, and vice.
And alcohol. Yeah.
Vice.
Right.
What's your weakness?
Right.
And what is our first memory of us as friends? Your earliest, goodest, best memory?
Well, I want to say it was part of Rotaract, right? Remember, we would meet up at Fido's, have our lunches there at Fido's, and then at that point you were working at Elsie's, the liquor distributor here on the island, and I was working with a real estate developer. And I remember at one point you said to me that you were starting to dip into real estate, and you just wanted to get to know a little bit more about the industry and chat about some good practices and whatnot. So I don't know how we decided to do this, but we said, oh, let's go grab a bottle of wine and go sit at the pier of Ramon's and catch up and talk about what you wanted to accomplish. And then that became one of our regular pastimes to do, where we would just grab a couple of bottles of wine, go sit at the pier at nighttime and just talk about whether it was real estate or life or whatever it was. And so from there, we really built a great relationship, right? A great connection. And from there, it just continued to going on vacations together, to starting podcasts together, to doing all these sort of fun things in life.
And there's a thing that people like. Ramon's has such a beautiful dock.
It's very
And
romantic.
It was a very romantic scene.
Yeah.
And I remember we're using you because you look white, just in
I
case the
am.
security, just in case the security would come asking, it'll be like, she's staying here, she's staying here. And I remember that, but it's a very romantic dock. So if anybody out there, you're looking for a romantic spot to have a getaway, Ramon's is this place to be.
Yeah, it's very lovely. Beautiful pier out over the water, and they have a thatched hut on the end of it, and then they have the blue lights going out on the dock, so you see the marine life underneath in the nighttime. Yeah, it's beautiful. It really is beautiful. But then it just continued on from there.
I remember when we had our, you remember our lechuga loca story?
Yes.
It was when you were on your gluten-free days.
Yeah, well, not so much these days, but yes.
Well, you were having gluten-free, and all our stories have alcohol in it. We were pretty wasted. And we stopped by La Burger Lady at Marina's store. Right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Really good burgers there.
Really
Late
good
night
burgers. Still pretty good. So if you're
good.
ever drunk, the south side of San Pedro, that's the place you want to stop.
Even sober,
for
they're
burgers.
pretty good.
It's sober, yeah.
Even sober,
That's a sign of a good burger.
Yeah,
When you're
true.
sober and drunk, they're pretty good still. Afterwards, I remember we were talking to the lady. We were like if we had discovered some new thing. But looks like she probably wasn't her first time doing something like that. Because she knew exactly what we were meaning with what we said.
But with La Lechuga Loca, it was essentially a burger without the bun. Right? It was just a
Wrapped up
burger
in
wrapped
lettuce.
up in lettuce, right?
Yes.
So La Lechuga Loca, the crazy lettuce. And it was a really good one. I gotta say that even still to this day, we go down and get the burgers there from Marina. So definitely it's a nice one. And I think when we talk about to our experiences, so like the goal of us talking here in the podcast is, yes, of course, to share our experiences and what life is like in San Pedro. And both Job and I are in real estate, and we found that there are so many people who are coming down here to the country who are either moving or relocating or have their own experiences here and just don't really understand the lifestyle concept of it and you really don't get that until you're here. So over the next however many episodes we end up doing, we'll talk about, some funny things that happened during residency. We'll talk about, what dating is like here. We'll talk about all of these different array of topics, bring in guests in order for people to really get a good understanding of what's going on. But I think that there's a lot that we're going to uncover, and this is really just our pilot episode here, but there's a lot that we're going to uncover for people to be able to really get a good feel of what life is like. But what else like stands out to you, Joe, when you think about our friendship and adventures over the years?
You remember that summer? Well, was it summer? It wasn't. It was right before summer.
Every day here is summer.
Of 2021. When we had both had pretty bad breakups, and we were both single. I wasn't single for long, but we were both single. And we went on this tour, basically.
Oh yeah, we did our tour of the mainland. Rented a car and just toured around and explored places we hadn't been before.
You remember that when we were at Hopkins and we did the Girls Like You song from Maroon 5 and Cardi B.
Yes.
We were just driving through Hopkins just at 10 in the night. Nobody's inside. And we were just singing out loud that song. We were just singing it from a place of heartbreak.
It was a really good trip. And remember before that though, so we did, what else did we do on that trip? We did Cayo, then Mary and I did the ATM caves. And then we went to Hopkins and we did the bioluminescence tours, which was awesome, right? We were the only two on the boat, and we were going through the river and then ended up in this lagoon where they had the bioluminescence, which is essentially plankton that lights up. And so we were going through and, we had our little cocktails on board. And at some point I was like, I just really need to go to the bathroom. And the guy's like, oh, well, you can just jump in the lagoon with the bioluminescence. And I did. And it was awesome because as you like flap your arms around and your legs and everything around you lights up. But what I didn't realize is that once you get out, it's also on you. So we went to the bar afterwards.
Yeah.
We went to this little like local bar, which was awesome. It was cute, like, you know, a little bit difficult to get to, but it was per recommendation of our tour guide. And so he said, go to this place, like mention my name, whatever it was. So we went to the bar, and then these people who were there, they're like, oh, we could see you coming in from like a mile away. And I was like, what? And he's like, they're like, you're really bright. And I was like, thank you. And they're like, no, like physically you're lighting up. And it was because we had the plankton all over us. And it was during the COVID time, which is why it was like 9 o'clock at night, probably felt like 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
Right. And then we had to head back. But there's just so many great things to do in the country that I think we just kind of forget about, especially as you have your daily life happening here on the island, and you know, you have your work and your family and your just general routine. Yeah, exactly.
And I remember our friendship has been, I mean, it has been based a lot of times when it comes to alcohol. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
But I remember at first it was just, it wasn't necessarily just alcohol. Like we got a really good connection. Mm-hmm. And here's one thing that it was funny, and I don't think I've ever told you this story. So, we'll make sure we catch her reaction. So when we started talking and we started hanging out, people started approaching me and be like, hey, Job, are you and Rachel dating? And you remember a certain someone who worked with you and was mutual friends with us?
Potentially, but keep going with the story and I'll see if I can reflect back on it.
She left the job but she lived right around where I worked.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Well, we're not calling names, but
right.
I remember she would constantly come into the office, into the liquor store, and tell me, Job, you know, Rachel really, really likes you, you know. You should try it. You should ask her out. I'm like, but we do go out as friends. And it's like, no, but I think she... And I don't know if it was her just trying to pump me up to just do it.
She was like that.
Yeah. And I'm like, you know, I never... And this is one thing that we'll talk about. Because whether you're white as a guy, you know, American, or a girl, you are seen as an opportunity when you're coming here. Mm-hmm. So everybody, or at least my close friends, was like, Job, that is your opportunity. You already hang out with her. You already do this. You already do that. And I'm like... But I don't see her that way. I mean, at that point, first of all, we have a pretty big age gap. Secondly,
it's not huge, but it's...
What, you're what?
32.
All right,
32.
And I'm 25, about to be. So that's about
so like 7 years, not even a decade, but right, okay. Cool. I guess when you think about it as being like 7 years ago, right? So if you were 18, I was
19, 20. So it was pretty. Yeah, that was a pretty big age gap. Sense. And I never really saw you as it, like, you know, for dating. Because first of all, at that point, you were in your career, you were traveling a lot, and sometimes we barely would be able to hang out. So that was that. And it took a while until people stopped asking me again. It took a while until people started telling me, Job, I thought you had already slept with her. And I'm like, no, that's not how our friendship is. And that's one of the biggest things I've always had, that it was so funny. And I learned that whenever you make friends as a guy, you make friends with an American, they automatically think that you're sleeping with them. And it's vice versa. Yep. You know, you see young girls with older, young Belizean girls with older white guys, American guys. And it's like, immediately it's like, oh, they're dating, or, oh, they're, you know. That. So that was a fun experience there that I learned. But
it's also like a funny indicator of how life is here on the island, right? Because it's a small place. So population, about 30,000 most of the time, right? It goes up during high season when people move in, but it's a real small town feel.
You can't hide anything.
You really can't hide anything, which sometimes to me, when I think about like the dating life here and people's love life, is just unbelievable to me. How some people act when they're dating. But regardless, that's a topic for another conversation. It really is a small town. And I mean, it's even like that in the States, right? There is that whole conversation of, can girls and guys just be friends? And it is something that here, it's just not a question that's asked, it's assumed, right?
Especially if they're two different
ethnicities.
If you come from the U.S., it automatically gets implied. If they start seeing you hanging out with them, it automatically gets implied.
Yeah, but then it is kind of funny too, because you and I have joked about getting married. And of course, guys, this is a joke, right? I don't want the people coming on and be like, oh, it's illegal to do that to get your green card and visa. Yeah, we get it. We totally get it. But we joked about it because it was really difficult at one point for Belizeans to get visas to the States.
Yes.
Right? When Trump was in office, it was very difficult, and you had to fill out this visa application online, and you had to, like, I remember, put down all your social media handles so that they can check your social media. And so Job was like, I just want to go and visit. Like, I don't even want a green card. And I was like, well, life would be a lot easier here if I was a citizen. And so, we started getting a little closer in pictures. For those of you who are friends with us on Facebook, you may see we look like we're getting a little cuddly at some points. And
we were getting ready for that immigration interview.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're like, here's our pictures. We've been dating for 7 years.
And I remember I started dating somebody who I'm with now, and I said to him, I was like, just don't get jealous over this friendship. It's not like that, but we just have another agenda that we need to get taken care of. So if there's no pictures of you on my Facebook or online, don't worry about it. It's fine. Job is going to be there for a little bit. And then obviously, we didn't end up going that route. But I think it's a real indication too of, it does happen, right? That does happen, and that's fine. That's none of our business. But it is part of life here. But when it comes to relationships here in Belize, I think that that is a totally different topic, and another topic where I don't know if we want to get into that or not today.
Let's kind of touch it. So let's talk about dating, actually dating someone here, whether you're dating a Belizean or an American or it's something like that. What has been your experience like so far?
Interesting. It has certainly been interesting. So I've been coming down here to Belize since 2012. And at that point, I just started working for a development company. And my job for the last when I was working there with 10 years, was really quite rigorous in the sense where I was traveling all the time. And for a long period of time, I really didn't want to date anybody. So, I knew that it was a small dating pool here on the island. And then when I really dialed down deeper into what I really wanted in a partner, I just found it very, very difficult, challenging, if not impossible to find here on the island. And so I got to the point, I was like 27, 28, and I was like, all right, at some point I'm going to want kids and a family, and work is still as crazy as ever. But if I really want to make this a priority, I've got to really start thinking about my next moves. And so my coworker and I, at the time, we were talking about actually moving to Panama. So I had my residency in Panama. I was doing a lot of work in Panama at that time. And I loved Panama City. It was just a really international destination. I met so many great people when I was there. And so I was really, truly beginning looking at moving to Panama to get to this next chapter in my life. And I joined all of these expat groups online. I had the attorney that I was working with there start to look at apartments for me. And then, they say like things in life come when you're not looking for it. And then I met this guy on a Tropic Air flight where I seen him around because it's a small island. And we had a mutual friend who was there on the plane with us who I'd known previously from a restaurant that used to be on site of the resort that we worked at. And then he knew him because this kid was now employed with him. So it was just the three of us on the plane and the pilot, and everyone's joking and laughing and having fun. And I was like, he's like a really fun guy. And so I normally never do this, but I sent him a Facebook message and I was like, let's go grab a drink sometime, right? It could be a one night stand kind of thing. Because at that point, again, I was in my mind committing to going to Panama, but it was just a really fun plane ride. And he sent a message within 30 seconds back. And he's like, oh yeah, sure, let's do something tonight. And he has a bar here. So I was like, I didn't expect him to be available that night because I figured he'd be working. But he's like, yeah, I'm just closing down the bar. Do you want to go grab something tonight? And you and I actually had plans that night to go out. And we were going to Sunset, and then I think Sidelines after is where we ended up. And so I was like, oh no, I can't do tonight. But he's like, okay, how about tomorrow? So I ended up meeting up with him at up north at a place called Rojo. And then, from there, it was a very bit of a bumpy experience, a roller coaster. But, all in all, it did work out. We are engaged. We're having a baby. It did work out. It definitely took a lot of boundary settings to get to that point. And especially for what I was looking for in a partner. Like I could tell he had a lot of those qualities, and there was just like a little bit of fine tuning, I would say, of some of the other things. And he was coming out of a long-term relationship, and coming out of a long-term relationship does that to you. But prior to that, like I truly wasn't really interested in dating anyone here, because all of the experiences that I had heard from my friends was just there's a lot of infidelity, there's a lot of lying, there's a lot of cheating, there's a lot of all of this, and it's really unfair of me to group all of this into one category, right? To say every person is like that here, because it's certainly not the case. But I just didn't have time to go and filter them out. And I had heard so many experiences too of my friends, expat girls who would come down and then start hanging out with a local guy, and the guy would be like, "Oh yeah, like I'm single and this and that," and then they would start dating, and then like 6 months later, they'd find out that he had a family, and it's like, oh, the wife is fine with it because the wife knows that this expat girl is giving him money, and like that money is coming back to the family, and I was like, this is mind-boggling to me.
The dating scene here in the island is
hard.
It's hard. You don't even know where to start. And that is why, you knew for a while, from when I was 18 to like when I was like 23, I would only date people outside of this island.
Yes, that's right.
And my first serious relationship when I was 18, and that lasted like a year and a half. Then afterwards, I serially dated other people from the mainland. Just because it's not that we want to group everything into the same, but you're in an island. And an island that consumes a heck of a lot of alcohol. Mm-hmm. And when there's a lot of alcohol, there's a lot of bad decisions that get made. Yep. And you have a lot of options. You truly do. And and this goes both for guys and for girls. But dating here in the island sometimes can feel like if you're just like going around. And I did not want it to be part of that scenario. Obviously, if you're out down for like sleeping around and one night stands,
you have no problem here.
That would be this is your dream vacation. Yeah. But if you're looking for something more serious, something more
like
settled,
settling down,
it's hard. It truly is. It wasn't until I met my ex before, my second to last ex, that I actually found someone who I could maybe settle down with. At that point, I was part of the system that I messed it up and what's not, and then the next relationship after that. But now I'm in a place where it's like, okay, I don't need to date.
Yep.
I do not need to date. I don't want to be part of that same circulation system here either, but I don't need to date. And I've seen it get good both ways, where I dated a lot of people from the mainland, and it was nice because you don't see them every day. You only see them on the weekends or every 2 weeks. And you know what? You don't know what they're doing. You don't know if they're, whatever. And you're here, dear. That was fun. But it was also fun dating serious people here in the island, which was pretty nice and laid back.
And I guess it really does depend on, what you're looking for in a relationship, right? And I didn't really know exactly. I had an idea of what I was looking for, but I didn't want to have to deal with the whole like, oh, what is my partner doing out at 2 a.m, or what's who's he texting, or like I just don't have any time or energy or whatnot for that. And so it takes time, and to get into like a healthy relationship like that, it really takes time finding the right person, trust. Right? This is just generally with relationships, and so it's a bit of a challenge. And so I say, if you're somebody who's looking to find that dream husband or dream wife here on the island, it may be a little bit of a challenge to find that. Expand your horizons a little bit. But again, I don't want to generalize it, because there are really good people here, and I've met really good people who are in really great relationships and are happy with their partner, and not dealing with all that nonsense. But
I do think it takes two different people actively working towards that.
For sure.
And the next thing, you get into another topic, but what's your vice? Especially if you're into alcohol and drugs and all of that, and you want to come here thinking that being in a new place will help you make different choices. It's not
here. It's not the place. And I've seen before, really good people here come to the island, and get so consumed by party. And, we have to realize we're living in a tourist zone. This is a top tourist zone. And so a majority of the people who are coming here to the island are coming for a week or whatnot. And they're here to go get drunk and go, have fun and go party and sleep until 10 in the morning. But then all of a sudden, we have to take a step back too and say that we're not on vacation here. This is our life. And so if you start to get into that routine, and I say this to retirees who are looking to come down, like have a hobby, have something that you really enjoy doing that keeps you busy, because we have seen this downfall of really good people come and then just lose themselves entirely. And then family comes and will take them because of, it is easy to go to any bar at 10 in the morning and start drinking or whatever, and like you said, you'll have your pick here if you're, looking for something easy peasy, but at the same time, you've really got to understand yourself, know your relationship, especially if you're coming down with a partner. You both have to be strong and committed to each other. And, if you're coming down here to Belize to fix a broken relationship or marriage, I wouldn't say that's...
broken self.
Yeah, a broken self, right? That's a good point. Like, it's not going to really help you here, but it's easy. And I've got to say, like, maybe I was sheltered when I was growing up in the States, but I just truly have never seen the amount of drug use where I grew up that I see here. And the sad part is, for a lot of people, it's normal, right? I mean, it's normal to go and do blow every single day. That's not normal. Like, that's not normal. Especially, I mean, maybe it is for you, right? And if, I'm not judging. If you want to do that, that's fine. But if you're trying to better yourself, better your life, like get to that next point in life, then you've really got to be able to say no to those kind of things.
And I truly see it even from a local perspective.
Yep.
Good guys, good girls come from the mainland, because it's a work destination for us. So it's a place where you come and you make money and you save up and you buy your stuff back home and you go back to your family and you get to treat them because you're taking money back home. But I've seen a lot of great guys and girls come from the mainland and lose themselves here. Actually good people that are either religious or, they just come and lose themselves back here. And I saw a post about in a blog site, my San Pedro Scoop.
Oh, where yeah, Rebecca does a great job with this. Yes.
About, does the island ruin marriages? And I'll be honest with you, from my personal perspective, I don't think it's the island. Obviously, every person takes their own decisions, but it's the factors and the environment makes a big difference. And from my personal perspective, my parents' marriage, I think, obviously they're divorced for a while now, but I think San Pedro and what San Pedro, the factors around it had to offer, was a big determining factor on that relationship, on my parents divorcing and separating and all, all the lies and stuff that came out after that. But that was my perspective on it. And that's why I always said San Pedro is not a place for a married couple.
Right.
It could be, you could come. I've seen people come and make it work, and they know what they want. They have boundaries, all that stuff. So yeah, that's one thing there that I had to learn on my own. And even now that, like, I told you yesterday, like, I went out and I got so drunk and I made shit, and I'm like, this is not what I want. Yeah. And I had already had an entire month without drinking, right? But then I broke up, and then I went back to alcohol, and now I'm like, no, September is a sober September. And hopefully we are going to be able to make it across September without having the alcohol. But I tell myself, what is there to do? Like, barcade was one of the things that I would love to do. But even then,
what was it?
The barcade.
Oh, barcade.
Yeah,
there's like barking. I was like, that's an interesting one.
The barcade was fun because I would drink, but I would have a drink and I would be focusing more on the games that I was playing.
Right.
Pool and what's not. But apart from that, I really don't see anything else you can do here that doesn't truly heavily involve alcohol.
It is hard. It is hard. And so I'm, about 7 months pregnant right now. So I haven't been drinking for 7 months. And I get to a point where, it's like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock when people just started getting wasted. I'm like, you know what? Time to go home. I don't need to be here. But you're right. It is hard to find those sort of extracurriculars, we'll say, outside of going to the bar. But, it is certainly possible. It is still possible to go to trivia nights and to go to karaoke and to enjoy a lot of those things. But you've really got to reflect on what you enjoy doing and why you enjoy doing it, and then continue doing that. And I know for a long time here, because I was so heavily involved with my job, with my past job, I mean, I was working like 14, 16 hours a day. And at the end of the day, I was like, I don't want to see anyone. I just want to go home, like put TV on, fall asleep. And so I really was a hermit for the first few years I was here. We'd go out and have our fun and whatnot, but I wasn't necessarily interested in the bar scene. And I think that, you know, when I did start to come out more and people were like, oh, like how long have you been here? I've never seen you before. And I was like, yeah, because I go from home to my job, home to my job, home to my job, and that's it. But, you know, there's a lot of really great people here that I do feel like I missed out on from meeting earlier on because I was such a hermit initially. And, you know, a lot of the people who I've befriended over the years are people who have been here for a while and are really good people at heart. And so it is possible, I think, to be able to do all that, but you got to be able to really be honest with yourself and have that honest conversation. And
Absolutely.
And you can't, you know, what I've learned, because I've had friends go down this rabbit hole before, is you can try to help as much as you want, but until that person is ready to get help for themselves, there's not going to be any change. And so I've had to have, you know, friendship breakups because I was involved with these friends or with these people who really weren't good for my health. And whether it was like my mental health, my physical health, whatever it was just a very taxing or tolling relationship, because I just felt like, you know, it wasn't benefiting me becoming better.
Absolutely.
So
and there are great extracurricular activities, like you have Hope Haven, you know,
volunteer opportunities,
Lions Den, Rotary Club. If you're younger, maybe even the Rotaract Club. You have you have a lot of like sports like fishing,
diving.
That's
huge.
You have a lot of actual sports like football and stuff that you have
pickleball. They've added.
You have a lot of stuff that you can do that don't necessarily involve alcohol, but do know that the pool of people who want to do that is smaller.
For sure.
So I think the one most important thing that people need to get out from what we just were talking about, come to the island. If you're coming to the island, whether you're on your own or with a partner, have ground rules, have boundaries that you have written for yourself, for another person, and what you want to do. It all depends on if you're still working, like, you know, working from home, you obviously have your shift, but after that, where you want to be. And don't be afraid to make friends, to get to know people, because I've met great people as well, whether locals or expats. But don't get too attached to someone, because then again, they can turn out to be a toxic relationship, whether it's friendship or just a sentimental relationship. Don't get too attached to someone, and be okay with walking away and knowing that you might be alone for a couple weeks, but then you'll find someone else great, and you'll be able to start a next relationship there, and be able to have a good friendship or a good sentimental partner. But you just have to be very well aware of what you want and how you want your life to be. And I mean, if you want to come here and just be partying and doing drugs and that's what you want, that's fine. You know, drugs make the economy move. But I'm sure
jobs,
provides us all with jobs, and I'm sure that will be okay. But just as long as that's what you want. So another thing that I wanted to make sure we touch base is like how has our relationship benefited you? Any ways that you saw that, oh, you know, Job made a good impact in my life, and you know that you're glad for?
So I mean, what I would say first and foremost is that you just really are a truly great friend. You know, that it doesn't matter if we're going out and drinking or not. We are able to sit down, have conversations, catch up on what's going on, give each other the genuine feedback. And that's one of the things here that, you know, we were just kind of alluding to, is you do lose friends when you start changing your lifestyle and you're bettering yourself or whatever it is. And regardless of what we've been going through, we've always been able to maintain that relationship, right? Which I think is really important, especially when you are looking at building a friendship here. It doesn't really matter, you know, how you grow over the years, but it's nice to know that somebody stays with you during during that process.
Absolutely.
And so I think that that's a real thing. And I love that you love to eat, Job.
Oh.
Because
That's my biggest investment there, second to alcohol. I remember
we do love a good meal.
we do love a good meal. But that's a good thing is that for us, like we could go weeks or maybe even months without like having the conversation. Then we both get together and it's like
nothing changed.
Nothing changed. So that's good. Find yourself a French. Find yourself a Rachel.
Well, you know, and you were saying this before, it's like when there is the expat or the gringo or whoever who comes down who's befriending a local, like there is kind of that assumption like you were talking about initially. It's like, oh, what are you getting from them? And it's never ever been like that.
You've never felt that it was like a relationship?
No, well, I mean, a relationship, yeah, but like never felt like one, you know, like one was benefiting more from the other for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's never like, you know, Joe, I'd be like, all right, Joe, Leo, let's go out. And then he'd be like, oh, shoot, I forgot my wallet. You know, like you never did anything like that. And it was always just a very mutual friendship. Which,
I do have to say, I'm glad to having you because I had a free mule from the States for my stuff. And I've had access to your credit card. And it's not a thing where she's my sugar mama, but it's just, I got to pay her back.
He does pay me back.
But
yeah.
I have that accessibility that from even when I was younger that I wouldn't have had. Right. So obviously I can shop for my stuff online. Whenever you're going, I ship them to you. You bring them down to me. And whether you realize it or not, apart from what you mentioned, that makes a world of a difference to me. Specifically when I need something really bad. So that's a good thing.
Well, and that's a good conversation for next time is getting stuff here because it's really hard to just get stuff. Yes, but we'll talk about that another time.
All right.
Anything else, Joe?
No, not for friendship and love. Let's see what else we have.
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot more delving into the topic too as we continue on with the sessions here. You know, this is really just a very general touching the surface conversation, but it's gonna be really fun, I think, to get deeper into these topics and
it will.
And unveil what life is really like here on Ambergris Caye.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you like this first episode. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, follow us on our social media, and make sure that you send us that love. If you have any questions, right? If you have any questions or things that you want to hear our perspective about, we're hoping that in the future we'll have a live session. But for now, just send us over our questions, your questions, and we'll put them in our next episode. Do know that we'll have 2 episodes per month. So, and then during the month, we'll have those going and just have fun with it, right?
Yeah,
hopefully it'll be something nice that people find it.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone.
We can quickly, put it out that if you want your business logo to be here, we're currently taking bids.
We're feeling really confident with this, guys.
I mean...